Welcome to the Business Spotlight. Today, I'm really thrilled. I have Jo Moffatt, the visionary founder of Woodreed. They're a brand agency that has been making waves for 25 years. Jo, it's absolutely fantastic to have you. I'm going to dive right in with my first question. Tell me a little bit about what it is that you do and what that journey has been like.
Thank you, Alida. Thank you, and great to be with you and to have the chance to tell a little bit of the Woodreed story, really, because it has been a story, and as you say, over quite some time. And what we do now and what we did when we began is actually very different, but there is a golden thread that joins the whole thing together, and that is brand. So when we began Woodreed back in the day, we were a through the line, as the phrase was then, a through the line marketing, advertising agency, communications agency, working with brands of all shapes and sizes, producing marketing campaigns, targeting potential and existing consumers and business clients for those brands. What we do now, and the journey we have been on over as a good few years, is to apply some of that thinking plus a lot more to help organizations engage their people, their workforces, their people with their organizations' priorities, objectives, and to create high-performing workplaces in a nutshell. But there's been quite a journey along the way.
Excellent. Sounds a really interesting journey, Jo. So, what's been some of the biggest lessons you've learned along the way?
I think because it has, it's been a few decades in the making, and I think when you begin a business, I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but certainly when I did, you kind of jump into it. You're enthusiastic, potentially a little naive, maybe. You just sort of are driven by the energy to actually do something. And certainly in the early days of Woodreed and in the early years of Woodreed, as with very many organizations and agencies in that area, we would do pretty much anything for a client. If they said, "Oh, can you produce a video for us?" "Oh, yeah, we can do that." "Can you produce a direct marketing campaign for you?" "Oh, yes, we could do that." "Can you develop an exhibition stand for us?" "Yes, we can do that." We would do we would turn our hand to whatever it was that a client was asking for. Simply pleased to be having the opportunity to do work. And so we were quite undiscriminating in the work that we did, the things that we offered. We would always just find a way. We would work it out. We would find somebody who could help us. So it was a degree of, entrepreneurial energy of we'll just make this happen. And that's what we did, and that's what we continued to do for many years. And at the heart of that was a developing expertise around what brands really are and what they mean and the power that they have to engage audiences. And so that was the sort of the starting point. What I think the first big learning comes from a realization that actually you can't grow a business being all things to all men. You can't develop a proposition for yourself that is trying to appeal to everybody. You actually have to draw a line in the sand and say, what do we stand for? What do we believe in? What is our absolute core proposition? What is our point of difference that will make us a valuable partner, supplier to a client, rather than, oh, where we can do that, we can do this, we can do the other. So it was a kind of realization that we needed to grow up, if you like, and apply to our own proposition what we were very comfortably applying to our clients, which was saying, we were saying to them, you've got to stand for something, you've got to be differentiated, you've got to understand your audience, you've got to think about your competition and how you can differentiate yourself and position yourself in the marketplace to offer something more of value to clients, but be very clear cut about what that is that you actually stand for and what your offer is. We were doing that with our clients, but we were shockingly bad at doing it for ourselves. There's that old adage of cobbler's children go ill shod. And marketing agencies are notoriously bad actually at doing for themselves and their own businesses what they recommend and deliver for their clients. So we took a deep breath and we took a long look at ourselves and went through with our own business the approach, the methodology, the exercises that we were very happily and successfully applying to our clients. Talked to a lot of our clients, about what it was that they liked about us, how they perceived us, what they saw our value as being. And also, what was going on in the marketplace at the time, and what we had learned in recent years. And one of the things that became very apparent was that we had increasingly found ourselves working alongside not just developing external marketing and advertising campaigns for our clients to their external and consumer audiences, but also a realization that actually there was this huge untapped audience inside organizations who were very often left out of the communication loop, who were very often the last to know when it came to perhaps, a marketing campaign or a brand repositioning. And yet, had they been brought in to the communications loop early on, would have been really powerful advocates for what that organization was trying to do. And if they only understood what it was that the organization was pitching itself as being about, and their place in that, their part in supporting that, they would be much more likely to support that and give of their energy and give of their best to deliver that. So we had begun to get involved in that sort of internal audience world alongside the external marketing. And at the same time, we were becoming increasingly aware of a body of academic work and theory around employee engagement, around something called the service profit chain, which was an approach which was written about by James Heskett and various others, which was basically saying if you get your internal quality right and your internal communication right, you will deliver a better customer experience. Your customers will be more loyal, their satisfaction levels will rise, they will be advocates for you, your business will grow. So this sort of one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. So as well as our own experience, we were also realizing there was this body of thinking and academic research and kind of quite robust papers and thought leadership going on in the outside world, which sparked the two together. And as we spoke with clients and we talked about what our proposition might be and began to think of a way of differentiating ourselves that would have real value to clients, that was when we took the decision, to quite a brave decision looking back on it, to kind of just stop doing external communication and entirely reposition the agency on the internal audience, employee engagement, culture, creating great workplaces, not just for the benefit of the workforce that were involved in those organizations, but commercially for the benefit of shareholders, stakeholders, senior leadership, because all of this evidence was pointing to the fact that if you get the inside right, then you deliver the bottom line business KPIs that matter. And that was quite a scary thing, to sort of saying, no, we don't do that anymore. We only do this. This is what we stand for. This is what we believe in. This is what we focus on. And what differentiates us is that we are doing all of this with the internal audience, but we are applying the thinking, the rigor, the insight, and the creativity that has historically been reserved for your external audiences and is the prerequisite of the marketing department, but we're going to use it with your people. So that was different. Nobody else was really doing that. And we know that the thing about brands, Alida, is that they really engage with people on an emotional level. That's the power of brands like, you know, BMW, Apple, John Lewis. You know, I could stacks of them. People invest in their brands and delivering a consistent brand experience because it delivers value and it creates an emotional response with an audience. Now, we know that that emotional response is 5 times more powerful than a rational response at changing behavior. So marketeers know that. Marketeers do that day in, day out with external audiences. Why aren't we doing it with our people? So our pitch was a very simple one. Apply the thinking, the brand-led approach to your people that your marketeers are applying externally to create emotional engagement amongst your workforce, to your organization, to your brands, because that will be a more powerful driver of the kind of behavior that you need as an organization to be highly successful and at the same time create a great place to work. So it's kind of win-win situation. And unlike in marketing agencies and external marketing campaigns, you don't need to put a multi-zero price tag on that campaign. You can apply the thinking and the rigor and the creativity. It doesn't necessarily have to have the same price tag as a multi-million-pound external ad campaign would have. And that was that was the pivot that we made about halfway through our life as a business. And initially we were a little bit scared about jettisoning entirely that external comms type stuff, and we held on to it a little bit because we couldn't quite let ourselves let go. We should have been braver, but we talked about having the mothership and the kind of module, and we'll jettison the mothership once the modules become self-sustaining. It didn't take long, and we were very quickly just on a path of focusing entirely on the internal audience, and that was quite a switch, really.
There's some really great takeaways from that. Thanks so much, Jo. So what would you then say is your point of difference? What sets you apart from others in your industry?
Well, that at the time we made that switch, what was different was that our proposition was inside out thinking for brands. So we were saying, we will start with your inside and we will apply the brand thinking of your external communication to the internal audience. And aligned with that, we will support that with a rigorous methodology around employee engagement, which I don't think we've probably got time to go into on this call, but brings those two things together. So that was different. What has changed since then is that actually we've increasingly developed expertise in the area of employee engagement and culture change, which almost brings us up to where we are now, which is a little, which I think I probably need to tell that story a little later on when we get to the kind of exit strategy, which I think is very important for many SMEs that are out there. You know, when I started the business 25 plus years ago, I wasn't really thinking about how I was going to get out of it. But there comes a point when you do have to start thinking about that. And when you are an organization or a business that is very much built around an individual, and there was more than me, but you know, it's my business, my baby. It can become quite tricky to think about how do you actually exit that at some point in your life, and inevitably you have to start thinking about that kind of thing because anno domini, you know. So I can kind of tell a little story around how we've managed to do that in a moment, if you would like, because that actually means that what we've done is we've taken that core differentiation of using brand on the inside, which no one else was really doing, but we've added to that considerably with the way that we've developed how we've set the business up for the future, where my role will be considerably less than it has been for the last few decades.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I would love to hear about the exit. So would you mind sharing a bit around kind of what's next for you?
Yeah, that's absolutely. So, as I said, one of the big challenges can often be, how do you exit a business that hasn't got assets in terms of, bricks and mortar and machinery and kit? How do you exit a business where much of your value is actually built in IP and client relationships? Is that really saleable? And it's a tricky one. And what we actually ended up doing was being a little bit creative about that. And so in the last, where are we now? Yeah, a month ago now, we concluded a change of ownership of Woodreed, which, as I say, has been quite creatively done. So 10 years or so ago, I started working with a client who at that time was at Volkswagen Group. Volkswagen Group had been a client of ours for many, many years. We did a lot of great work with them, with their internal audience and also their dealer networks, who we would always consider to be an internal audience, because they're basically as key to delivering the brand experience to customers as anyone else. This person had been a client of ours at Volkswagen Group. And as with many of our clients, when they left and went somewhere else, they introduced us, and we did great work there for a few years too. Rule of reputation, referral is very much the lifeblood of a business like ours. And then when this person left as a client and actually set up on their own, we stayed in touch. We that relationship continued, even though they were kind of working in an allied sort of area to us, an allied area, but with additional skills. And the opportunities arose for us to begin to work together with this person as an associate, because their skill set mirrored ours in some areas of delivery, but enhanced it in others. So we were in a position where for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been able to build on our offer and add to the things that we do. So historically, Woodreed has done communication, internal communication, culture change, workplace culture, underpinned by employee engagement principles. What this associate of ours, former client, brought to the party, which we didn't have, was that she was a qualified executive coach. So what we've been able to do for the last 2 or 3 years is actually work with this person as an associate, because whereas there were areas of overlap where her skill set mirrored ours, there were also some areas where she brought particular skills to the party that we didn't have. She's a qualified executive coach, for example, and has also got very robust experience around change programs and change management. And whereas we have done change work with clients before, it has more been around the kind of communication of change rather than the solid underpinning of the project management principles of change. So we began for the last 2 or 3 years to work together on projects where her skill set could enhance ours. We began a working relationship in that way, which was built on the fact that we knew each other as client and supplier relationship, but now we were working together as partners in delivering. And that enabled us to find out that we kind of could work together well, that there was an alignment of values, which is so really, really important with in any kind of exit strategy. But it's, even if you're not exiting, it's really important that you feel a sense of alignment with the partners and suppliers you work with to deliver work for clients. And it was then a natural progression to have a conversation with this person and also one of my existing senior team about a quasi management buyout. It was not a management buyout because that's not what's been done at all. But a leadership change in the sense that we now have we've now got a situation where Woodreed has changed ownership, ostensibly been bought out, if you like, in that sense. And the leadership has changed from being me working with a senior colleague to that senior colleague now working with the new owner. And that is the sort of start of a new phase of the business, because added to our traditional offerings of workplace culture and internal communication, we now have the solid coaching and change added to that. So 4 C's, if you like, rather than the 2. So that acts as a springboard for where the business might go in the future. And I'm still involved, but in a less hands-on day-to-day capacity. I'm going to be sitting on a advisory board role and working with certain key projects on a more strategic basis, so that my day-to-day involvement in the business is reduced, and we've got that new energy and additional strands to the offer, hopefully to take the business on for another few decades. So that's where that brings us right up to date, Alida.
It's such an interesting story, and I just love your journey. Thank you so much, Jo, for sharing all of that with us. What advice would you give to someone starting out in business?
Oh my goodness. Be prepared for it to be all consuming, because it will be, and there will be times when you are thinking that you really shouldn't be doing this, but you're going to have to. Don't lose sight of the importance of having fun. That I cannot stress that enough, because if you're working hard and you're giving more than you would ever imagine, it's got to be fun. You've got to enjoy what you're doing, and you've got to have a laugh, and you've got to take out the highs. You've got to take out the highs as well as the lows, because inevitably there will be lows. I don't think I was I went into this really appreciating just how all consuming running your own business can be. I think that probably times have changed a lot. I mean, back when I started, nobody talked about work-life balance, and you just did whatever you had to do. That's not particularly healthy. So it is important to carve out personal time for yourself. But there are going to be times when that sometimes has to give, because that's the nature of the beast. I think lead by example is another one. You don't expect your people to do stuff that they don't see you doing too. Model the behaviors, model the way of treating people that you would want your people to deliver to your customers and to their colleagues. I think that's really important. Yeah, lead by example, have fun, but try and have some work-life balance, but be prepared for the fact that sometimes the buck does stop with you, and that does mean sometimes checking your emails in a taverna in Greece when you'd really rather be having another ouzo. So yeah, be prepared for the price that you will pay, but because you'll be having a lot of fun, you'll be all right.
That's just excellent advice there, Jo. I love it. Thank you so much. What was a memorable hurdle you've overcome, and what did you learn from it?
Right. There's been a few. There's been a few along the way. Working in the industry that I've worked in, we are one of the first to hit downturns. So one of the, there's been downturns. There's been, the big recession in 2006-7 was potentially a game over situation. We had just begun the pivot to our new proposition when the recession in 2007-8, I think, hit. We at that point had an enormous amount of our client base in the automotive sector and financial services and a bit of housing. And if anyone, I'm sure anyone listening to this will remember that period, the car industry, the automotive industry led the way in the recession. They were the first to see the downturn come. Financial services crashed thereafter, and housing hit the buffers. And that's where our clients were. We had to take some very, very difficult decisions at that time. We had to reduce our headcount significantly. It was a horrible, horrible time, and I had to make very unpleasant and difficult decisions about resource and people and their livelihoods. And it's not something that I would ever want to have to do again, and I'm very glad I won't have to ever do that again. But what I learned from that is that if you approach those sorts of situations with integrity and transparency and honesty, treat your people like grown-ups, and approach this with not just with an eye on what the law tells you to do in terms of employment law, but with an eye on what's right and what's the right thing to do for your people that have worked for you for sometimes many years, and you approach this honestly and openly and transparently, then you and the remainder of the business will come through it stronger than you would imagine. And I take pride in the fact that many of the people that we had to let go at that point, I'm still in contact with, have actually gone on to do great things and said to me at the time, I know you had to do this, but thank you for doing it fairly. So I think, there are reasons we have employment laws and there are reasons we have protections. Don't try and buck the system. Treat your people fairly and honestly, and it will repay you in the long term. And that I think would also apply to things like providing the opportunities for your people to work flexibly. We have for a very long time, and I think probably we're quite pioneering in this way, worked hard to make it possible for working mums to come back to work. And it was working mums when we first started it. Now it wouldn't be. It would be maternity and paternity returners. But then it very much was creating a workplace culture where we could allow people to work part-time or flexibly around their growing families. And I'm very proud that we managed to do that. And I'm very proud that, again, many of the women who've worked for Woodreed over the years have acknowledged that and recognized that we actually did make a difference in a way that other people weren't offering at the time. So again, that was not taking the letter of the rules, but thinking about trying to create an environment that could work for all of us and for our clients. And I'm very proud that we've managed to do that.
Oh, Jo, you just gave me goosebumps. So good.
Oh, I
Thank
didn't
you
mean to
so
do
much.
that, Alida.
Oh, that's so powerful insights there. And I mean, tough times are ahead for some businesses, and it's just such great advice. Thank you so much. What is the key to success for you?
Relationships, I think. I'm not sure if that would apply. I think that applies to anyone who's in a service industry, but I think it probably also applies if you're in manufacturing or whatever. But relationships, It's the power of the relationships that you build with your people. It's the power of the relationships that you build with your clients. And if you do it well, your clients and your people, even if they're no longer current, will always recommend you, have your back, be willing to say the good things about you. And so, yeah, relationships, I think, is absolutely the most important thing. And you get that by being honest and authentic and true. And it's not about smoke and mirrors. So many organizations will have values. They'll stick them on a poster and pop them on the wall, and think that that's what they need to do. Well, they don't. That's not what it's about at all. Yes, those things are important, but it's actually about how you behave to make those values real, how you bring them to life. There's an awful lot of noise at the moment about equality, diversity, and inclusion. These things are really, really important. They're not just buzzwords. They are vitally important to an organization's success. Any organization or ecosystem is the healthier for being diverse. It applies to an investment portfolio just as much as it does to a workforce. And anyone who fails to see that is being willfully blind. And it's not just about espousing those principles as being important. It's actually about making sure you bring them into your daily behaviors, your decision making, and your policies. And that will help you create the right kind of relationships with your people and with your customers that will stand you in good stead.
Oh, that is clearly why you are so successful, Jo. It's just such good principles right there. What is one book you've read, or maybe even a podcast or something you watched or listened to that you would recommend to others?
But it's by a guy called Alex Edmans, and he is a professor at one of the leading it's either the London School of Economics or one of the London business schools. He's a hard-nosed economist. So I think sometimes people listening to the kinds of things that I talk about around workplace culture, employee engagement, equality, diversity, and inclusion, they could be, it shouldn't be, but they could be dismissive and talk about those things as being pink and fluffy. Now, Alex Edmans, who is a hard-nosed economist, has written this great book called Growing the Pie. And in that, he has analysed and demonstrates with rigorous economic solidity why it makes commercial sense to grow the pie so that all stakeholders get a larger slice of it rather than a small group of stakeholders getting the biggest slice. And that, I love his book. A, it's very readable. B, each chapter kind of finishes up with some useful takeaways. But most importantly, it's not written from the perspective of somebody who could be dismissed by those who have a desire to dismiss such things as being lightweight. He isn't. He's hard-nosed, rigorous, tough economist who gets this stuff and makes a very good case for it. So yeah, Growing the Pie would be the book I would recommend.
Oh, brilliant. Brilliant book. I'm going to share the link with this recording. So thanks for sharing that great book there. If you could magically improve one area of the business right now, what would it be?
Oh, now that's a difficult one because we've just gone through this change of ownership. So I don't know that I could particularly answer that. I think probably what it would be to join up all the tech that we use in some wonderful, if we're talking magic wand stuff here, Alida, then it really would be magic wand. And because I'm not sure this would ever be possible, but you know, we've got so many different platforms and tools that claim that they will integrate with each other, but they never really do. I would very much like to have a totally joined up approach to all the software and all the programs and all the bits and pieces that we use that would all talk to each other and feed into each other, so that one day I don't have to map out an Excel spreadsheet with a load of formulas in it ever again.
I actually quite like that a lot. Excellent. Um, uh, Anything you'd like to share about the business? Maybe some news or just things that are in the pipeline or coming up that you'd like to make others aware of?
Um, I think the biggest news really is the fact that we've just changed ownership, and that very much is building on the legacy of what we have been doing for the last few decades, but has now added to it some really significant additional skills that for the last 2 or 3 years we've been proving and you know, and testing, and we know that you know, they're really adding value to our clients. We're seeing some of those clients who've worked with us in the last couple of years who've had access to these additional skills are seeing some really great results as a result of the work that we've been doing. So adding executive coaching particularly to culture change and communication is a bit of a game changer, because it's so important to take leadership with you on that journey. And very often to take leadership with you on that journey does involve one-to-one coaching to enable them to lead the kind of culture that they, in their hearts, they know they want to have, and deliver the kind of change that they know they need to make. But often they need that support personally to help them to do that. So that's very exciting, already beginning to see the results of that. And I'm absolutely certain that under our new leadership team, Lorna and Charlotte, that will only grow. And I know that they have got some really exciting ideas up their sleeves to build on what we've been doing in Woodreed in the last few years, to actually package some of our offering up in a way that clients will be able to find even more accessible, and perhaps be more available to smaller organisations actually. So historically we've worked for private sector and public sector, as well as some not-for-profit organisations. We used to do a little, we've done some work with SMEs too, those who understand just how important this stuff is. But often what SMEs want is more of a blueprint to take something and get on and do it themselves. And so what we're developing is some offerings that will enable them to be able to do that, perhaps with some check-ins at key points, just to make sure they're keeping on the right track. So there's some quite interesting things in the pipeline, I think. So watch this
Sounds
space.
really exciting, and really looking forward to the future and what's about to come by the sounds of it. Thank you so much, Jo, for coming on today and just sharing a wealth of experience and knowledge that I know those that are watching are just going to get so much from. So thanks so much for coming on.
It's been my pleasure, Alida. Thank you very much, and good luck with everything.